Well, it's about 9:30 here in Cozumel, although I've been up for about 4 or 5 hours because I'm still hooked into States time, which is about 2 hours later, you know. So I just had my taco breakfast and some fruit and some pretty stiff coffee. And with that astounding news, which is something you have to really understand if you want to understand what this town is like, Cozumel, it's very peaceful because there's nowhere to run and hide. Basically, if you rob somebody, they're going to catch you because they have faster boats. You know, there's 12 miles to shore, so unless you're like one of those Dr. No characters that comes in a helicopter, you know, and it comes down and picks you up and go out, you're as good as caught. We had a big robbery about a week ago here. 14 guys, well, there's 13 guys and one woman came in to hold up the diamond exchange, which is a big Israeli concern here. It's Fort Knox, basically, and but the Cozumelians, as we'll call them that, were extremely clever because of the 14, only 2 had any brains. And those were the leaders. So once they walked in and swamped the shop and scared the living shit out of people who had just come in to buy jewelry from the cruise ships, that's the deal. The cruise ships disgorge people in huge numbers. They don't know what to do. They're afraid to walk back a block, afraid they might get killed by gangsters, and so they stay on the main drag, where they're dragged in basically by hawkers. Let's just call them hawkers, you know. Boom, you're in. And of course, some come by appointment to the big diamond exchange and the jewelry exchange here. But they were in there and they were looking at some very big, nice diamonds when these 14 guys, 13 guys and one woman, because this is an equal opportunity state. Mexico is not as backwards as it used to be. Came in and everybody kind of laid down on the ground and was very scared to death. And the 2 leaders, after they put everything in their pockets, told the other 12 to go down to a building near the Soriana supermarket, which is where I shop. It's about 3 or 4 blocks away, and they'd all rendezvous there. They're going to take different cars. Well, of course, the leaders, that's why they're leaders, they're a little bit smarter, never showed up at the Soriana holdout, but somehow left a message for the cops that that's where the robbers would be. So they immediately arrested them and stripped them to the waist, except for the woman. But her lipstick was messed up on TV. But they paraded them out. They're very sweaty, so God knows what they were doing to them. But they were surprised they had been caught so quickly. And of course, the real problem was that the 2 leaders they're hiding somewhere on the island, you know. There's a lot of places to hide because the only town is San Miguel, which is where I am, and everything else is basically jungle, you know. It's that mangrove thick, mosquito-ridden, limestone-based jungle that you have on an island like this. And so they haven't caught them yet, as far as I know, and so they're basically have handfuls of the Israeli diamonds, and the other 12 are being whipped mercilessly and sent off to a prison that you don't even want to imagine how bad it is, you know. Alcatraz looks like Hilton Head, you know, Hilton Head Island compared to these. This is unbelievable, you know. So anyway, that shows you never trust your leaders, and that's something I'd pass on to anybody in the States from the gobbledygook we've been getting for the past. Oh God, when did it start? I guess it started right after Kennedy, all the bullshit, and it just kind of mounted up. So it's just when you look at Mexican TV, where they have a channel just dedicated, as we do, to showing you the government does work. What it shows you is there's nobody really working. There's just some talking head yakking away, and they have the Imperial set up in Mexico with lots of red curtains coming down in the Imperial Eagle, and you know, in back of the guy. But he's just yakking away, and the president is very good looking this year. You know, he's very good looking. He's one of those oligarchs. You know, this just I don't know how many families control Mexico, but it's not a lot, and all the money goes there, basically, and it doesn't just really trickle down to anybody except them. And that's the way it goes. You know, and it's been going that way since Montezuma. You know, there was Montezuma, and everybody else was, well, they're down in the ground. You know, they're kind of picking up the pigeon droppings. So that's about the biggest news. I'm about the only guy left here. Everybody else has headed back to the, what can you call it, the mainland in America. They're either going up north to Wisconsin and Minnesota and all those places where it's still freezing, or as some of my friends have done, they're going back to Mexico, you know, going back to Florida, which is going to be the new Mexico soon. We just have to wait until everybody finally defaults on all the mortgages, you know. I don't know what's going to happen there. It looks like a complete mess if you ask me, you know. But who am I to predict a financial disaster? Since I found it very easy to live right about at the poverty level, and I spend my winters in Mexico and my summers in Sarasota, and I have a good time at it, and I'm not wanting for everything. Excuse me, for anything. I'm wanting for everything, but I'm wanting for nothing really, because I have plenty to eat, and I have, long ago, I kind of gave up all the habits that drag your finances out of your pocket into somebody else's pocket, and that is a desire for alcohol and drugs and cigarettes. You know, once you get rid of those, you'll find your pockets just kind of fill up with money, and then all you have to do is eat well, but don't go to the places where they have the little paper doilies and the lamb chops, because the lamb chops are just as good in the place down the street where there's no paper doilies, you know. And that's easy to do in Mexico, because once you walk back 2 or 3 blocks, you have places where the Mexicans eat, and you don't have to pay the prices that you would on the bayfront here, which is one big, humongously engineered tourist trap. Some of the restaurants are very good, by the way, but they're just as expensive as they are in Florida, so guys will stay in Florida. You know, they're not any better, you know, but they're just as good as the expensive restaurants in Florida. And it's just as easy just to stay in Florida. Then you won't have to pay the airfare, and you want to learn the language or anything, you just stay there and eat all that stuff that you like in Florida, and you can then go home to your own comfortable bed rather than tossing and turning on some hotel bed that's been slept in by, you don't even want to imagine, when you're not here off season, you know, believe me. So anyway, that's not true here at the Apartamentos Blanquita, which you can see in back of me, has some very dazzling prints that they have. That's P-R-I-N-T-S. And one of the few circular fluorescent fixtures you can find in the free world. And you see my window looking out on the rain as it's coming down, and the wind is pushing the trees. They'll go the same way, so you got to go one way this way. And every once in a while you look out and you see we're only about a block from the bay, so when the cruise ships come in, they blot out the sky basically. They're like huge blimps, but they're floating on the water. I can hear one now, the horns are going, and I guess it's pulling out, and like that, they take out. So those are filled with the people who wandered up and down the bayfront shopping. They don't know what to do. They have these little bags, and they don't want to go back to the boat because they were told there's a shore excursion. Get your ass in gear and go for a shore excursion. But as soon as they step off the boat, because I've been on these, they're fabulous, you know. I just stay on the boat. And in fact, I don't even go upstairs to look at the ocean. There's a TV in your room. You turn on the ocean view. You have one in the stern, one in the bow. That's good enough. You know, why go up the stairs and look at a lot of fat people, you know, lined up at the buffets? And there's no need to go offshore, because unless you're willing to walk about 10 blocks, you got to be stuck on the bayfront, which, as I say, is expensive, and it's hot, and it's crowded with people just like you who don't know what the fuck is going on, and you have to buy something and don't want to buy it because they're kind of dragged in by guys who know a couple of words in English, you know, hey bud, or something like that, whatever, for your wife, you know, whatever. And but then you're forced to buy something that you don't know what to do with, but you're proud of it. You put it in the bag, and you kind of tuck your waist in like this, you know, when you head back. So my advice is to stay on the boat at all times, and don't go into the Diamond Center, because you never can tell when these guys are going to try it again. All they have to do is find another 12 dumb guys who will go in with them, with the promise that it'll all be shared equally. That's the big promise in Mexico. But it always stays with the two guys, the Presidente and the Vice Presidente, whatever he's called. Those are the two families, and everybody else down below doesn't get crapola. And that's what happened here. So it's a living example of the Mexican economy, and which is really a model for the American economy, which is well on its way to becoming exactly what they have in Mexico. A lot of guys talking bullcrap at you from big podiums, you know, and how they're doing the American thing, and meanwhile people are living pretty close to the poverty level. As soon as it falls beneath it, we'll have a revolution. But right now, at the poverty level, you can live pretty good. You can have a car, you know, you can have 2 TVs, and you eat pretty good. You wear the same clothes. You don't go on vacations or anything like that, and you can't have any kids. That's no kids. Live on a poverty level. You have to get past that, you know. But that can't last forever. And I think what will happen is that one of these days, even though I am convinced that at least half of the American people are dumb beyond belief, and I take as proof of that the fact that George Bush, an attractive Texan, no doubt about it, had a nice twang and everything like that, and said folks a lot, which I like, to have elected him the second time, along with that Cheney guy. What are we, all nuts? He should have been pilloried, you know, put in those little things where you put your head through it like it had in the days of the Pilgrims, and everybody just sort of slapped his face a little bit, and Cheney too should have been beneath them, so Bush could have crapped on Cheney basically, because you didn't get a chance to go to the bathroom, just crapped on the guy beneath you, you know, like the rabbits. They put rabbits in cages like that in the village markets where I used to buy rabbits for my kids for their birthday, for the magician. He wanted a live rabbit so he could pull it out of a hat. So it was my job to go down, because this guy was too lazy, clowning the magician. I had to go down to the village, Greenwich Village, and find the guys who sold the rabbits in the Italian section. And I soon learned after one attempt is that you always buy from the top cage. You know? If you buy from the bottom cage, which is very cheap, you've got yourself a real washing deal, which usually results in the rabbit catching pneumonia before he's launched out of the big jacket of the, like that, the rabbits out to show to the kids. But what that happened on my first attempt, because I had to wash the rabbit down, you know, with soap and everything, and get him clean before the birthday party. Rabbit caught cold and died soon afterwards. He's just rigid, long, rigid rabbit like that. I lived in an apartment on the 26th floor. So I had to get him down the elevator, you know, so I had to pick up the rabbit. When they're stretched out like that, they're about, you know, 2.5 feet long. So I had to put them underneath my jacket like that, you know, and go down the elevator, pretend that nothing was really happening, and then get in the car. And then I had to find a place to put them, you know, because you just can't stick them in those kind of wire things that people see you doing it. You know, what are you doing with a rabbit? You know, something. So it was, I had to go down some alley so I got rid of it. So just a word about how to best conduct yourself, etc., when you're handling rabbits that are to be pulled out of the bang like that, you know, which is what we're getting a new deal all the time from the government, and everybody's applauding. And I used to watch the news shows, and I like some of them too, but it's just like bad. It's like bad theater. Basically, what we have is we have a government which is theater, and it's worse than anything on MTV or VH1 or the the government-sponsored networks like CBS, NBC, whatever they are. You know, they're so afraid of losing your license, they just kiss the government's ass every time they can. And that's also going for the guys at cable. They've lost all common sense. They'll just say anything to get you to watch them. So basically, what you have is theater kind of ranging from the boring to the rapidly sensational and ugly. That's to keep us entertained. That takes the place of the Roman circuses. And Popeyes and Kentucky Fried Chicken is the bread. You know, now you get bread for the Romans. They wanted the goddamn bread. You know, when the bread didn't come in, there were riots. So we have the same thing, and it's the cheap, scientifically engineered chicken, which only lives for about, I think a guy told me once, 8 weeks or something like that. They out of the egg and they feed them with chemicals and they plump up and burn into the, you know. So they're filled with fat and steroids and everything. But I have to tell you the truth that every once in a while, you know, I'm trying to lead a kind of modern life, which has really escaped me, to tell you the truth, at the end of 74 years, what that means. But every once in a while, on a Sunday afternoon, I'll be hanging around in the States, and I get edgy, you know. I'm an existential guy. I got concerns and worries and everything. I don't know what the hell I'm going to do, you know, and I'm looking out the window, and, you know, Adora, she's taking off in a rocket ship somewhere, you know, and she's looking out the window, and it's just nuts, you know, basically. So I don't know what to do. So what I do is I get in my car, and I get $12.84 together, and I get a 9-piece Kentucky Fried Chicken, all dark meat bucket, nothing else, no French fries, no coleslaw, just a goddamn Kentucky Fried greasy chicken, which is still the best. I'm kind of torn between the original and the new crispy. And the roast chicken isn't bad either. It's not really roasted, but it looks like it's roasted. But I find that I just have to go for the original, unless I find out that the new crispy came out sooner. You know, just later, I mean, you know, so it's fresher. So my question always is, what did you just cook? And if it's roasted, I get roasted, or if I get the crispy or the old original, and I just tell him all dark meat. He goes, all dark meat? You're the only guy that asks for all dark meat, you know. I said, but all dark meat, no white meat, you know, because that's the engineered part of the chicken. That's how you get those big breasts, you know. They're like the strippers, you know, with 96 DDD breast. It doesn't taste like anything. So I get the all dark meat, and I just drive down to the Gulf, and I usually park in a street where you can't park because I like the view, you know. And I just start to devour the chicken. 9 pieces of Kentucky Fried Chicken is a lot of chicken. I usually have a Diet Coke with it, just to keep the calories down. And every once in a while, a cop will come by in a cruising car, especially if it's during the tourist season, you know. And he'll say, "What are you doing in there? You're not supposed to park here." I said, "Well, I just wanted to eat the chicken, and I'll be through soon." Get out, you know. So I have to, you know. So I said, well, let me just finish this piece, you know. So I usually I like a view when I eat. I don't go back eating in my apartment. Eat a whole bucket of chicken in my apartment. You know, my condo, whatever it is. It's a little bigger than this place I have in Cozumel by about 3 times, but it's very pretty. You know, and I have nice tile floors and everything. But you don't want to sit in your own apartment and eat a bucket of chicken. That's a step that you take before you're about to just go out the back door permanently, if you know what I mean. You hear the scratching and you know the time is coming and just go, all right, you go on, you know. Okay, so with all that, that's my little diary entry on this day, which the trees are still going, and I see a couple of boats out there that get ready to leave, but it's been a kind of opportunity to cleanse my mind, you know, which gets to be pretty well clogged up here, especially if you're up at 4 or 5 every morning because you can't figure out what fucking time it is. And so I'm up, you know, even before the sun comes. I feed the pigeons. I have 2 cups of coffee. Sun comes up. I watch it come up. I'm glad God is still in business. And then I get to thinking about all of my problems and all of my tribulations, and let me tell you, my triumphs. Let me tell it to you, my triumphs. I put them in little piles: trials, tribulations, triumphs. Triumphs is very big, usually it's about this big, and trials and tribulations are down here, but they're very sticky and you can fall over them, you know. So you can't be too proud about all of your triumphs, you know. You can go, well, I did this and I did that, and I received this honor and that honor, because nobody really gives a shit. What they want to see is they want to see you fall on your face, and that's pretty easy to do, really, with the trials and tribulations, you know, being what they are. You know, when you have like the love life down the sewer, the social life completely down the sewer, just trying to figure out as to where you fit in. But here in Cozumel, there are a lot of guys like me who just don't like what's going on. and who are artists or musicians or painters. So they all head down here for 6 months, and they get a new breath of hanging out again with the real people, as opposed to the other people, the actual people who are in your supermarkets and your malls, and who drive past you and tell you to turn your radio down, that kind of stuff, So those people don't exist here. If they do, they never come back to where we live here. They always stay right on the main drag where the cruise boats deposit them, and they're living in constant fear. They'll be abducted, raped, and pillaged. You can be pillaged today. It's not a nice sight. Pillaging is think about it. So they all stay up there and they scramble back and forth for blocks, and they're hot and sweaty, and they're carrying shopping bags, and they don't know why they ever came. But they don't come back here. So what we have here are basically the cool guys. I don't know how to say it to you, but this is where all of the cool guys are and have been coming here for years, and really don't give a shit about what's happening in the States. So outside of, I hope my tax bill has been paid. I'd have to check for some. I don't want my house to be repossessed. So with all that said, and I want to bid you a fond farewell for this diary entry, which I believe is Tuesday, March 26th, where the highlight of my day today is to go to RAFA'S COCINA ECONOMICA, where he has promised me fried chicharrón tacos. Chicharrón is the skin of the pig, and it's the most unhealthy food by U.S. standards that you can ever imagine. You take the skin of the pig, and it has a little bit of pork on it. That's the lower level, okay, and then you go up to the fatty level, which is very thick, and then the skin, which gets roasted, or crispy, and you chop it up and you fry it, and it's. I don't care if it takes 10 years off your life. I'm almost 75, but look at me, I'm a piece of work, I would eat chicharrón every day, basically. With a lime juice on it, a nice corn taco, the real corn, maíz, as they call it here, maíz, no harina, maíz, por favor, tortilla, and you eat down 5 or 6 of those for breakfast. But I'm going to have them tonight. I'm going to have about 5 or 6 tonight, and then I'm going to pretend to go. Party bar, and put them in a bag and come back and have for breakfast and lunch the next day. You can't have enough pork. Basically, if you think you can have enough pork, you're nuts. And you can eat a couple of bananas to even it out, but you got to have the pork. Mucho importante.